Welcome to lesson 16 on data types. In this lesson we'll explore Java's Boolean primitive type. We'll discuss its structure, how we declare initialize a Boolean type. So let's get to it. Okay, as you can see, the Boolean is part of Java's primitive type, but it's not under the numeric types. It's a branch of its own, and it can have basically two values, a true or false. Okay, so Java uses the Boolean primitive type to represent true or false. Its size is undetermined and is left up to the Java virtual machines implementation. It has only two valid Boolean literals, namely the true and the false. Okay, so note it's unlike some other languages, Java's Boolean is not a 1 or a 0. One cannot cast a Boolean to another primitive type and vice versa. There is a Boolean wrapper class in the java.lang called Boolean with a capital. Okay, yeah, I've got a public class called main. As usual, I've got a main method, so let's go and have a look how we declare and initialize a Boolean, a primitive Boolean value. So I'm going to paste some code there. And here I'm declaring a variable named b1 of type Boolean. And then I'm allocating the Boolean literal true to b1, and then I'm going to print out its value. So I'm going to save that. Let's compile and run it at the same time, and as you can see there, b1 is equal to true. Okay, yeah, in the next block of code, these lines here, I'm going to declare initialize a Boolean in one line. So I'm saying Boolean b2 is equal to false, so I'm declaring b2 of Boolean and I'm initializing it to false. Then I'm going to output to the console b2 is equal to and its value. And then I'm going to assign the value there of true of b1 to b2, and I'm going to then print it again. So it should output the first time false, and then I'm allocating true to it, so it should be true. I'm going to save it, and let's see what it does. And as you can see, that's the first line. The previous line is true. Here it was assigned, declared and assigned in the same line to false. Then we allocated the value of b1 to b2, which is now true. Only true and false Boolean literals are allowed. Okay, so let's look at some of these literals. Example of the Boolean literal true and false. Okay, so yeah, I've got a Boolean variable b1 which I declared over there. I'm assigning it an integer literal value of 0. And then on the next one, I'm declaring a variable called my byte1 of type byte with a value of 1. And then what I'm doing is I'm assigning my byte, the byte, to the Boolean value b2, which you can remember I declared b2 also here as a Boolean. So my byte I'm assigning to a Boolean, and then yeah, I'm taking a Boolean literal of true, and I'm applying a arithmetic operation plus false. So let's see what happens there. And b1 is equal to, and I'm adding two integer values and assigning it to b1, which is a Boolean value. So it's just to test our preposition. I'm just going to delete that. So I'm going to save it. Okay, so now I'm going to compile and run it. Java main.java, and let's see what happened. You see I'm getting a whole lot of errors. Let's see, I'm getting errors from line 22. If we look here, here's line 22, where I'm assigning a 0 to a boolean, and it says yeah, incompatible types int cannot be converted to a boolean. And then on line 24, where I'm assigning a byte to a boolean, which is this one here, it's complaining error at Java main 24. 25, it says bad. Okay, we were 24, incompatible types, byte cannot be converted to a boolean, which is that one. The next one is bad operand types for a binary operator plus. So that one is line 25. So it's looking at this one over here. So it's complaining about that. And line 26, incompatible types int cannot be converted boolean, because we know we got two ints here and we're trying to assign it to boolean. So as we can see, unlike some other languages, Java's boolean is not a 1 or a 0. It's a specific boolean. Literal can either be true or false. You cannot then assign other int values or other primitive types to a boolean. And we got an arithmetic operation here and one over there, and this obviously converts to an int, and this one you cannot add to boolean literals, a true and a false, or a true and a true, it doesn't really matter. We will explore the different operators and their types on a later tutorial when we deal with operators and their types. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I spoke about the size is determined by the Java implementation. So there's no specific size like in the longs and things where you got a minimum and maximum. So just to prove that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment this out. So I can just put a star there. And I'm going to comment this code here because we know it throws errors. So I'm just commenting this block of code here. This block of code is now commented out. So what I'm going to try and print the boolean max value and the boolean min value. So let's go save that, and I'm going to compile it and run it at the same time. And I'm getting errors here. On line 32, it says cannot find symbol boolean max value. Now we know this, yeah, boolean, as I mentioned earlier, is a wrapper class with methods and constances for the boolean, like the others have got wrapper classes. The boolean has got a wrapper class with a capital B. And then it will have methods and constants. So this is a constant, but it's complaining that it can't find the max value and the min value. So let's go and look. We can just type in here Java 11 Boolean API, and it should take us there. And here's the API of the Boolean. Now here's the constants fields, the constants, because we know it's static, so it's a constant. We'll discuss that later on. But you see there is no max value and min value. There is only a static false and a static true, and there's a class boolean of type. So this false will return a boolean, and true will return a boolean. So let's look at that. As you can see, if I go and search Java 11, let's say the long API, and we go look for that one. Its constants, you see there is a max value and a min value, so there's a range, where with a Boolean there is no range, there's only a true and a false. In this sense it's capitals here, and we'll discuss later on more on that. But recall there is no range, it is either a true or false, and this is for the object Boolean. So if we go back to this one, we know this one compile. So I'm just going to comment these two lines out. As we saw, they don't compile. As you can see over there, it's complaining it doesn't find those methods. And yeah, I'm using the wrapper classes, two constant values that can be used. The wrapper, the Boolean wrapper class. So I'm just going to write here Boolean wrapper class, and what I'm doing is I'm allocating Boolean true to B1, which is of type Boolean, and Boolean false, it's a static constant variable, and then I'm going to output its value. B1 is equal to B1 and B2 is equal to B2. So let's see if that works. Just going to clear the screen, and then I'm going to say java main.java, and you'll see there's my first three outputs. So those are the previous three outputs, and yeah, I'm allocating true to B1 where B1 was true, and I'm allocating true again to B1, so it stays the same there, and I'm allocating false, it was false. So let's just change this. I'm going to make them both false. So B1 was true, B2 was false. I'm changing B1 to false, and B2 I'm changing to false again, so it will stay false. But if that one changes, we should see the difference, that it actually worked. So let's try that, and there you see false, false. So B1 there, as you can see, was true, and B2 there was true, because we changed it last over there. So they were both true, and now I initialize them both to Boolean constant value false and the Boolean constant value false, and they're both false. So that works. Now you cannot cast from another primitive type to a Boolean, as we saw before when we tried and allocate. But what if we try and cast? What would happen in this case? Yeah, we try to cast different primitive types to a Boolean. So let's try that. Okay, so yeah, I've got a lot of primitive integer values. I've got a char which I've got a value of 0, and I'm casting it to a Boolean. I've got a byte value of 1, and again with the name of a byte, and I'm casting it, and this here must be a Boolean. So let's change that, Boolean. And yeah, I've got a short, and I'm trying to cast it to a Boolean. I've got an int, and I'm casting it to a Boolean, and I've got a long, I'm casting it to a Boolean. I'm going to save it, and let's see what happens here. And I've got a whole lot of errors. Line 44, which is this casting here, which is that casting there, line 44. Line 46, which is the byte to a Boolean. Line 48, which is a short to a Boolean. And line 50, which is a int to a Boolean. And line 52, which is a long to a Boolean. And they all failing because the char cannot be converted to a Boolean. byte cannot be converted to Boolean, a short cannot be converted to Boolean, a int cannot be converted to Boolean, a long cannot be converted to a Boolean. If you look at the sketch primitive types, you'll see the Boolean is over here. It's not a numeric type, and the numeric types over here, and they got integer, integral types and floating point types, and Boolean is not part of this hierarchy over here. Now we know that the primitive type cannot be cast to a Boolean, so from a different primitive type to a Boolean and so on you cannot. But what about from a Boolean to, say, an int and so on? What will happen in that case? Well, the same actually applies. These will also fail. So I've got a Boolean literal true and I'm trying to cast to a char. False Boolean literal I'm trying to cast to a byte. Short false Boolean literal I'm trying to cast to a short. Yeah, I've got B1, which we know is a variable of type Boolean, and B1 here as well, and I'm casting it to an int, and this one here should be long, so let's change that one to long. And let's see what happens if I save it. And once I compile it, you see line 58, 59, 60, 61 and 62, 58 to 62, they are all giving me the same type of area. Boolean cannot convert to a char, Boolean cannot convert to a byte, a Boolean cannot convert to a short, Boolean cannot convert to an int, and a Boolean cannot convert to a long. And as before, as explained, is because they are not a Boolean is not considered a numeric. It is either true or false. Now we've come to the end of this lesson on Java's Boolean primitive type. We saw that the Boolean data type has only two valid values and that one cannot cast it to another primitive type. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, learned something from it, and please don't forget to press the subscribe and notify button. I've also got a Facebook page related to this channel. You're welcome to join my adventure channel where I share photos and videos of various activities and so on. Until we meet again in our next lesson, I wish you well and happy coding.